So we hope this is the start of something big, and we'll continue this collaboration in future. Thank you to Srini and entire CFIC team for your support and everything that you're doing for Central Florida Indian community. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So now on to the webinar today. And just before I introduce Harpal, like I can tell you from my personal experience, navigating to the college admission process in US, especially for someone who is a first generation immigrant to US, can be challenging. And trust me when I say that, because I gone through this with my son's admission process in US. So it's good to get all help that you can get, whether you're getting a counselor or you're gathering all information possible from all the sources you can, that always helpful. So with that in mind, we plan for this webinar. So it's my pleasure to introduce Harpal, who is also my college friend. So I known Harpal for a very long time, and he's the founder of Success Coach. And he started this company to guide students and parents through the college admission process. One thing I like about what Harpal does, just talking to him, over the years, is how he takes the entire process and kind of break it into a smaller projects, so it becomes more tangible for all of us to digest and run with it. Otherwise, it's very overwhelming if you try to take it on yourselves. So hope this will give you more information. If you want to go and work with Harpal, that was also an opportunity. But this webinar definitely going to give you a lot of information to get everything started. So with that, again, it's my great pleasure to introduce Harpal. Harpal, over to you.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you, Srinivas. Hello, everybody. We see about 30 people have joined the session. About 90 of people have signed up for the registration. I can understand why some of you are a little gloomy today with the match not going our way in cricket. I am too. Both Milind and I were awake all pretty much night watching the game, and we picked ourselves out of the bed to do this session today. But no, I'm super excited, guys. And this session is all for you. I feel your pain, each of you, when we talk about college admissions, simply because I went through it myself. Milind went through it. I went through it with two of my daughters, and I looked for good counselors all around, and I think I had found some of the good ones, but ultimately even they fell short. So seeing the state of the immigrant market of first generation parents who try to navigate the system, and how much emphasis we all put on education, and for the lack of information, how we all go hunky-dory in just taking as many APs as we can, as many stressful extracurriculars for the students as much as we can. As much as we learn, we try to create stories. We'll end up creating robots in the process. We don't do a lot of service. It's more like a disservice, I feel, to the generation ahead. And I was guilty of doing that for my first child. For the second one, I was a lot better. My first one went to Columbia University, and the younger one has gone to Santa Clara University. So with that, I'll open up some slides. But if you have questions, just throw it in the Q&A section. Milind and Srinivas will moderate some of the questions for me. But like I said, this is your session, your time. Ask as much as you want. Okay. So let me share my screen. Milind, can you see my screen? Milind or Srinivas?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sounds good. So this is what we had sent out as a flyer before. We'll talk about academic rigor, expectations, what are merit scholarships for everybody. Yes, we'll talk about merit scholarships, how to find those. Should you be taking SAT, ACT? How do you research colleges? Do you just go from the top of the list of, the US News top 20 and go from there? Or you want to, go through a more strategic process and common mistakes that you can avoid? Okay. So I am a certified education planner. Like I said, at the point when I wanted to learn about this process a lot, I went to Stanford, worked under the ex-dean of admissions at Stanford for 6 months, and I came out even more confused than I walked in. I went to University of California, San Diego, UC San Diego, for another certified course. I learned a little bit more. Then I went on to take the highest accreditation, which is a certified education planner, which means pretty much every year I have to get certified with an examination where randomly they can pick up a few colleges and say, and a few profiles of students, synthetic profiles, and they ask me to rate where would I send the student. And if I pass that examination, I'm able to keep my certifications. It's a very arduous process. Now, my goal in general from this experience, and what I want you to walk away from this session, if nothing else, is take the mojo of making this process from high school, from the 9th grade to the 12th and later, make it actually a memorable process. Memorable meaning pleasantly memorable for you. And that should be the goal. That was my goal for my kids, that they actually come closer to me. They enjoy the process. If they want to become college admissions counselor at some point, they should want to do it. Because I truly believe the American system, the essays and the demonstrated interest and the academic process of choosing your electives is very unique to the system here. I mean, we all, for the most part, grew up in India, and I grew up in Mumbai, and it wasn't as simple as it is for a lot of these students. When I say simple, meaning in terms of the flexibility, it's a very hard life these students live with the world they live in of TikTok and all kinds of social media, and the amount of scrutiny they go through, the kind of helicopter parenting we do for them. What I try to do is create a space, a area of a relaxed area, an area where they can come and talk to me, talk to my counselors and the team, and actually start relaxing and learning the process. In some ways, I'm creating the future leaders. My goal is to create the future CEOs of this country from our diaspora, not through just intellectual skills or APs and nerdish skills, but through a lot more, which I learned over time. Now, the process in general for going to college and the process is fraught with anxiety. Milind went through it, Srinivas went through it, I went through it, you are going through it. It doesn't stop, okay? That's the bad news. The good news is you'll get used to it and you start enjoying it at some point. The most important thing that you learn is what we teach our kids is how to handle, prioritize the multiple moving parts, and how you maintain attention to the details for the I's dotted, T's crossed on the essays and the recommendations and the brag sheets, counselor recommendations, and interviews with alumni. It's a lot of work, but take it as the fun part of it, because this is a part of parenting, frankly, that is missing. Schools cannot teach it because they're too academic focused. Parents don't have as much time to do it because this is a lot of work. Like, we spend close to 20 hours with a student in 10th or 11th grade. 11th graders get more like 25 hours. The 12th graders get close to 45 hours of time from my team, okay? And that's not just time given towards writing an essay. It's to put together the entire profile. So it's areas which you can learn. And the good thing is it's not rocket science, and you can learn it and you can enjoy it with us. A little bit about my own background. I'm a technologist as well. Like I'm sure many of you are on this call. Milind and I went to the same college in Mumbai, and I am an architect at Salesforce. I am also a big part of a mentoring program with a nonprofit, a global nonprofit called Science Gurus. I run a summer camp for them on entrepreneurship, technology entrepreneurship, where I teach students how to build technology products. I have a background in product management as well, so I'm able to leverage that for my students. Those are my two daughters. One of them goes to Columbia, like I said, and the other one has just left house a month ago. She has gone to Santa Clara University. The interesting thing is I sent both my kids to liberal arts colleges. I did not send them to research universities. I did not send them to UCs, even though they got in some phenomenal schools. We were very focused on sending them to a liberal arts education because like both my girls are killing it simply because of the kind of learning that you learn from a humanities-based college. Shreya initially went to Wellesley College, and then now she's at Columbia. And she had barely taken one subject in computer science, and Microsoft came and sucked her up and took over 3 internships in a row. And she's working there as a hotshot engineer, and she's at Columbia. But all that stems from a liberal arts background. And my younger one is on the path to do the same thing as well. We'll talk more about that. Okay. This is my website. If anybody wants to go to successcoach.com, and read up about us, that's where you would go. So this is quickly the agenda. We'll start with the key dimensions of your application. If I don't answer specific questions, make sure you call them out in the Q&A section so I can see it and I can answer the questions. Managing your brand and college selection. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. When you look at a application of a student, we're not really trying to present we're trying to present a holistic perspective. Like it's literally like meeting somebody over a date. The average amount of time it takes for a counselor or a admissions officer at one of the universities, University of Florida, take Purdue, take any of them, they take about 9 minutes to read your application. And they go through all these 6 dimensions in 9 minutes. Think of it like a speed dating process. They are reading through your application very quickly, the recommendations, the essays, the extracurriculars, GPA, and they're making a decision about you at the end, about who are you? How do you make me feel about you? Do I feel good about you as a person, as a pleasant human being, as an interesting person? It's like a speed date, like I said. Do you have reflections and growth on your life? Have you reflected that in your activities, in your academics, in your recommendations, in your SAT, ACT, or in your demonstrated interest? Can I see those things? So think of your application in these 6 dimensions, but each is not on its own. They are all interrelated, and it sings like a poem when it's all done well, when it's not manicured by a parent and it's done by genuine interest from a child. Here on the right side, I've demonstrated the dimensions and their percentages in terms of what matters. GPA, hands down, matters. Like if you apply to a public university, it matters 70%. This dimension, the statistics I've given over here are for a private university, more like a Stanford, a Harvard, or an Ivy League, or any of the, in general, a good private school, like a top 100 school. 55% is GPA, and the rest components matter as well. Now, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So you can't say because demonstrated interest is 7%, I'm probably going to wing it, or I'm going to ignore it. That could be the reason why you don't make it in the last cut of 1,000 students where they're only selecting, say, 400. You might get edged out because of that. Okay. What you need is to be able to do this, to get to this perspective of all these 6 dimensions, to make sure how you feel. What you need is not a parent or a coach who works with you on essay writing skills, helping you with creative perspectives, giving you that feedback. So if you're going to do it for your kids, that's great. If you're going to bring in a counselor plays in this role of an essay writer. For majority people, they think a counselor only does that, which could not be further away from the truth. Okay. The admissions counselor side, there are 3 hats we put on. We either write essays, or we do what's called an executive function, helping them prepare for interviews, reflection skills, extracurriculars, putting a timeline for the applications, or we become an admissions counselor where we put together a application strategy. What kind of summer programs are you going to apply for? Which colleges are you going to visit? Which you're going to do in person? Which will be virtually? All of that comes into play into the thought process. Okay. Here's my team of counselors. All these 6 brilliant ladies work for me, and you can see the skill set they bring. Some are from humanities. One is a story writer at Columbia in Hollywood. She came from Columbia. Shruti is a med school, graduate. Nikki is an executive function coach. So she is trained in these areas. And Anu is an amazing writer. So I have writers, I have coaches, and I have essays, I have admissions counselors. So Nikki is an admissions counselor. I am an admissions counselor. That's how we balance the team. I believe one person cannot really bring all the skills to a table. So you do require 2-3 people, at least 2 people who play these 3 roles. In the most unique case, you would have 3 people working with the student, but that's the kind of energy you need in the room with the student. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Yeah. In your 11th grade and 12th grade, the services you're really looking for are somebody who can help you with putting together the applications. applications to about 20 different schools. Okay. You do need 20 with about like 5 or 6 in your reach, 6, 7 in your target, and about 10 or like 7, 8 in your safety schools. Okay. You need help with persuasive writing skills because this is not something that you really learn in schools. You could be a good writer. You might be a good writer to write basic topics or like technical topics, but creative writing requires a flair, which comes with time or with coaching. And putting together the list of targeted colleges, and not just colleges that your buddy has gone to or people in your school are going to. You want to go to colleges which are unique and which really suit your personality. Okay. This is some of the skills you as a younger student will really care about, is taking summer internship programs. And and again, I have a massive list of summer internships and summer programs, competitive summer programs, which become very important in your application, given that essays now can be engineered fairly well in a chat GPT system. Recommendations can't be really fudged because they come from teachers. Demonstrated interest can't be fudged. But a lot of that, if you see, they all culminate into summer programs. And I don't know how prevalent the need for competitive summer programs is in the Florida diaspora. But in California, where I'm based out of, this is huge for parents to find the good programs for their students. There are colleges which will actually routinely ask questions like, what did you do last summer? And all if you say is I traveled or I saved, a lamb from getting crucified, that's not going to cut it. They expect you to have done some kind of research, some guided research. Okay. Putting a 4-year plan in place at any given time, a live plan that you're working with a coach on every quarter basis becomes critical. And passionate extracurriculars. When I say passionate, I mean not curriculars which are, you don't want to be having 10 activities you're doing. Maybe 2, 3 activities which you do, which go from, for more than 2 years, where you've done something fun, somebody can vouch for what you've done. Maybe you've done some community service as a part of it as well. That's enough. You don't need to be doing taekwondo and piano and this and painting and swimming and water polo, which a lot of parents land up doing for their students. This is what we call as a multi-year plan. Okay. And like I said, many times students come very early on to us. The focus for them, if you notice across the board, is summer programs is in every one of the years. The high level theme for every year is we want students to learn a lot more, focus on their grades in the 8th grade, on some executive function coaching, to learn how to maintain priorities, to have some fun with some learning experiences, maybe do some research on YouTube for a particular topic they enjoy, take part in some competitions. And science Olympiads is a great way to do some of these things. Math Olympiads is a great way. USACO is great. But plan for good summer programs. 9th grade, the focus tends to be a little more on dual enrollment, so going to community colleges in addition to what you're doing, could be virtually, in person, trying multiple clubs. But this is like at a very high level, this is the area we go into very much in detail for every grade. And I have very detailed programs or details for what we would do for every grade. But again, the crux of it is 3 or 4 things. One is what kind of programs are we going to apply for you? And how do we write those essays, those applications? Most of my students will apply to 4 or 5 programs. We'll get into 1 or 2 and then select one. The brag sheets, the recommendations from your teachers, the prioritization of the applications, academic planning, extracurricular planning, pretty much those things come every year. And then the load just keeps increasing. That's when the 10 hours or 20 hours becomes 30 hours and 40 hours of working with the student over the year. Okay. So that's our unique value proposition. I wanted to build something which felt more like what I wanted to give to my kids, but I could not because I couldn't find those counselors. A very individualized approach with unlimited sessions for every parent and the students to meet with me over WhatsApp, over in person or in virtually. I have an office here in Fremont, California, if you ever stop by. Very personalized attention with utmost care, which means every one of our sessions is recorded. It gets quality control measured by others on the team. Parents can listen to the entire session, what the student and counselor talked. Parents are all welcome to attend sessions that I host with the students. We have an all hands with the student and the parent once every 3 months. So at any given time, we are meeting with you at least once every 3 or 4 weeks, with an all hands every 3 months, deciding with the student and the counselor what worked, what did not work, what we have to do next. And we have expertise in all areas of college admissions. There was a question by some anonymous person about how do I find good scholarships. That's an area, absolutely. We work on that area with our students. Scholarship.com and some of these websites, CapEx, have good scholarship information, but I have details of for particular schools, what are the scholarships that are available for them, which students do apply for. And that's an area I work with junior year students, sometimes even in the sophomore year, because there are some admissions for scholarships which are in 10th grade for a high school application, for a senior year application. Okay, so I do some of that as well. So with that, I'll open up for question and answers for this section. I think I've gone a little over my time, but anybody with questions specific to these areas we just talked about, to the application services, please go ahead. You can ask questions. I'm here. Any
Hey,
scholarship?
Harpal, yeah, quickly, you can either put your questions in Q&A panel, or you can just simply raise hand and we can unmute you from here. So
Pushpa Karini asked a question about any scholarships for students without green cards or citizenship. Yes, there are some available for international students. Very few, though. There are some colleges like Purdue and I believe even University of Florida, which do offer scholarships to international students. Do reach out to me. I can give you a list of schools which are more friendly towards international students to provide scholarships, but you don't get any scholarship from the federal government. You don't get any state discounts. You will come in as an international student.
Harpal, I got two questions directly to me. Simple questions. Will you be sharing copy of this presentation at the end of the session?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And the second question I have is, what is the role counselor plays in bridging gap between parent and student? Sometimes it's difficult to communicate with each other and agreeing on a plan. So how counselor helps with that?
Good question. And it's an area where we get trained in. This is the stakes are very high for a student, remember, right? And for the parents, they're doing this for the first time with their kids. And the students, for whatever reason, don't believe or identify with the parents that they know enough about the process. So they keep their stress to themselves. And in some ways, they'll end up talking to peers or looking up websites, which might or might not be very useful and might not be very responsible in the way they are providing the information. So a counselor is able to, like, for what I do with my students is I put a plan together in the very beginning of the year, saying these are the 6 things or 7 things we are going to do through the year. This is what it'll get you to at the end of the year. This is how it'll impact you for the year following. And when you don't do some of these things, or for example, if your grade drops, I'm able to go into my system or into my application. This is the UI of my application, which is open for the students. Like for every student, they get a dashboard where I can see which school they're applying to. I provide a list of colleges and they say, okay, these are the schools I like. I want to go to these schools. And if a grade drops, I can actually take that out, saying this school is no longer on your list. And that tends to wake a lot of students up, because if you have a B or a C in a particular subject and it continues over a couple of semesters, or God forbid, 3 semesters, it does start impacting things. So kind of that's the role. Sometimes it's a very therapeutic role, Milind. I get parents who come to me. Like the other day, I had a parent who was having a meltdown with a student because the student her grades were falling, and she had a grade falling in calculus and in APUSH and in computer science application, CSA. APCSA, and her question to me was, Harpal, which one should I fix for her? She can't fix every one of these, and just tell me which one do I need to go after her for? And I had to calm her down, get the child on the call, and I said, it doesn't matter. If do your best in all 3. Calculus might be the easiest one, but even if you don't get this, I got you covered. And I had to show them some colleges that I can still get you into. So it's a therapist role sometimes, Milind. It's a person who's been through this before. I don't know. I mean, people just seem to be lapping up what I do. I have 70 students in the system. I have six counselors, and my students can't get enough of us they just want calls with us. So I think we're doing something right.
Yep. Thank you, Harpal. We got few more questions, Harpal. Do you want me to go over that, or you want to go jump to the next section and we can cover it at the end?
I can quickly just
Okay.
answer.
So
Uh,
let me, this next question is, what would be the path to get to the college with good medical programs?
yeah,
I
so
think that
there's,
can be a whole session altogether.
yeah, it can be a whole session, and Milind could actually tell you a lot more because he sent his wonderful son to an amazing college. But again, if you're looking to get to colleges with good medical programs, let me quickly just share with you um, academic areas which you might care about, which is if you're looking to go to a pre-med program and obviously demonstrated interest in colleges or in the med school med program, doing some good quality summer programs, doing some kind of research internship in chemistry or in one of those areas could be great. But you really want to think about doing some kind of shadowing experience with a doctor. There is a program called BS/MD, which is what Millen's son also went into, which is a straight path to med school. There are different flavors to it. We can talk about it, but yeah, that's kind of high level to that question. What's the next question, Milan?
Yep. Do you recommend taking both SAT and ACT, and what are the difference?
I recommend you take one of the two to start you off with. This is kind of how SAT versus ACT stand out. Most students will take for whatever reason, I've seen West Coast students preferring SAT, East Coast students preferring ACT. Take a practice exam in both of them to decide which one works for you. SAT has more complex questions, but lesser questions, and some people fall prey to that. But ACT has more questions, and they are less, but they're less complicated. So it might be a good idea to try both, but then look at this dimensional graph I've put up over here, which tells you which one is better for which students. Usually, if your kid is already doing pre-calc and is killing it with pre-calc, or heck, he's doing calculus, SAT tends to do well for those students. But if they're more like readers, they're more science focused, maybe struggling with science, math, then ACT becomes a better option. What else?
Thanks, Harpal. Two quick question. How many scholarship can you get at maximum? Which grade do we have to start the process?
You typically you can start the merit scholarship planning process around 10th grade. There are some schools which will allow you to apply for some of those. I want to show you one slide which shows you schools which offer zero merit scholarship. Now, this slide, if you want to take away anything from this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, please take this away. Okay. These are schools which will give you zilch, nothing. Okay. And I have a whole list of schools which will give you no merit scholarships. Okay. Basically, if it's not like outside of Rice, Purdue, U Florida, or Texas A&M to some extent, University of Southern California. If a school is in the top 60, top 70 in the country, they're not going to give you any merit scholarship because of most of us, the Southeast Asian diaspora, we're very blessed and we're all making way over $100,000 a year. And that typically is the threshold. If you're a single mom or like 150, 100, or single parent, 150, 170K. But if you're a family working, then it's the thresholds come even lower down, before which they'll start giving you any kind of federal aid. Okay, what else?
Next question is, how many sessions per week will the counselors help the student?
No, once a week if they are senior year, once in 2 weeks if they are juniors, once in 3 or 4 weeks when they are younger than that. When we are applying for summer programs, and we're meeting them once a week.
Got it. Next one is, what class would you recommend for a junior year IB student that wants to major in psychology?
That's a longer question.
Yeah, I will take it at the end.
Okay.
And the next question is, if you have taken SAT and got high score already, is there a benefit to take ACT and also get a high score on that too?
No. If you've done SAT, and in fact, SAT is better because it gives you more access to merit scholarships. If you're in the 1500 ranges, you don't have to worry about it. If you are stuck at a 1400 and lower, and the SAT score is not going anywhere home, then I would suggest take it again. And ACT. My own kids had the same problem. They both got stuck at a 1400 on SAT. I gave them the advice to early on that try both the exams. They did not. But next time when they gave ACT instead of SAT, they nailed it. They got 34 on 36. Okay. So in that case, they had to go it twice. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend. But give me a call sometime. Oh, tell dad to give me a call and I'll talk to you guys. Okay.
Nice. Harpal, let's jump to the next section, please.
Yeah.
That takes care of all the questions.
Okay. Mr. Reddy, Sanjeev Reddy has asked a question or raised his hand, but we can ask him to come in the section after this. Okay.
Oh, we got a few more. Yeah, we'll take it at the end.
Yeah, I'll give you guys some time at the end to talk. Okay. So we talked about this. We're talking about the brand now. And how do you manage the student's brand, which means how do you make this person exciting? I mean, it's so sad that we have to have this conversation, but that's just because in some ways, we as a system, we as parents and have messed up. We as schooling has messed up the system. Like I never had to manage my brand as a kid. And my brand was there. I mean, it's just, it showed right there. I didn't have to think about it, but the world we are in, we have to do it because everybody is managing their brands. And when I talk about branding, I mean, how do you differentiate yourself from others? Everybody who, most of the students who come to me, they've got great APs, they've done impressive grades, they've got very stereotypical activities, and it's just, they come across okay. But these are the ones which will bomb an interview because they're not really able to hold on to a conversation. They don't know enough about current state of affairs, what's happening. They don't have a very good idea of where they want to go in their career, which is okay. But they haven't even had some of those conversations with people. And that's where your brand is lacking in some ways. And it's an area, like a case in point is Harvard can admit 1,700 students every year. And one of my counselors comes from Harvard, and she's on the admissions team there. And she says that they get about 5,600 applications only from valedictorians every year. Okay. So if Harvard had to accept students who were just valedictorians or had a good GPA, that they would fill up a classroom size 4 times over. Obviously, Harvard does not do that. So what do they look for? And that's the concept of the brand generation we talk about. Okay. And again, this is a process we do over a whole year or 2 years with the students, but at a very high level, you don't want to sound boring. You don't want to sound like just a nerd. It's not important to do a lot of summer programs and a lot of activities and take too many APs. It's all about quality over the quantity. Make it more relevant to the person who's going to be observing or reading your application, who's typically an English major or a history major. They are not engineers and doctors guys who are reading your application. So making your application very technical and talking about your robotics story, how you were the drivers, what Python code you wrote over there ain't going to get you much stars. It's just going to look like a geek and actually will get you out of some schools because they're like, it sounds kind of boring, and they might not want to build a cohort like that. They're looking for consistency and authenticity in the application. So be very authentic with vulnerabilities, with looking at your mea culpa moments, learnings, and show some of that, and make sure your recommenders are doing the same thing by providing them stellar brag sheets. So that's a lot of work that a counselor has to do to help put that application together for the student. I can open up. I have time for more questions before I go into selection apps here. We can take more questions from both the areas. So please go ahead.
Yeah, Harpal, we have a couple of questions. AP or IB, which one you recommend?
Both are phenomenal in their own ways. IB tends to be a little more nuanced in the sense you have to get the IB diploma. AP doesn't have any of those specific requirements, but I don't know if you have an option. If your school is offering you an IB curriculum, take it because it's fairly versatile. They give you that upper and lower subjects, and every student I've met from an IB program has been killing it because they have to do seminar, which is a very big part of a good education, which is AP seminar, which most students who do APs don't take it. What I like about IB is it pretty much mandates you what you should be doing in terms of the programs to take, which you don't get that in the AP because it's a wild, wild west. You could take AP environmental science and AP psych and maybe take AP computer science principles, and you think you've got a 4.5 GPA weighted, whereas it's crappy because you've not pushed yourself at all. Those 3 subjects which I talked about, CSP, psych, environmental science, or maybe even AP stats, or maybe AP econ, macro, micro, those are not hard ones to take. And the harder ones are, which I was showing that earlier slide, about the APs, AP Chem, AP Physics 1, or, whatever it takes. Let's bring your counselor. Let's bring you somebody who can help you to take those APs. But take those exams, guys. Those are important. What
Yeah,
else?
and Harpal, obviously, I'm not expert here, but in Central Florida, a lot of parents and students have gone through Seminole High, which is an IB program here. I can tell you, obviously, Harpal answered it from the college admission perspective. One thing as a parent, I will share that that IB program definitely prepares your kid for the college. I have seen students going from IB program into college. Uh, it was easy for them to get into the college. The rigor of the studies compared to the AP side. So just that's as a FYI as a parent.
Love it.
All right, keep going, Harpal. Those are the questions. There is one question which we did talk about. We will take at the end because it's a bigger question about what recommend as a junior year if a student wants to be major in psychology. So we'll take that at the end, or we can answer it offline. Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, guys, keep throwing questions. That's really what I love, with these sessions is a lot of good questions come in, and this is your time to, get everything answered from me. Okay, Mr. Reddy, go ahead. If you have a question. Sanjeev Reddy wants to, I think we'll have to unmute him. I'm going to unmute you. Sanjeev, go ahead. I've unmuted you. Sanjeev? Okay, I've unmuted you. Whenever you get a chance to speak, you can speak. Okay, all right. Do you want to talk? It's still on mute. Okay, all right, I'm moving. Okay, so let's talk about college. Sanjeev, why don't you put your question in the chat? That's the best way for us to answer it, because I'm not able to get you off the mute. Okay. Okay, so hold the hand. Okay, let's talk now about college selection and app process. Now, what's very important is, when people start thinking of which college should I send my kid to, most of them will start by US News, looking at the top 20 or top 30 schools in computer science in their particular area, close to home, or something like Stanford, Harvard. They'll start putting Ivy League questions. Don't do that, guys. Every one of your kids is special in their own way. And these schools, particularly the ones which are at a 3%, 4% acceptance rate, those are good schools. They're phenomenal schools. But why kill your child, with making the bar so high right off the bat, where there are phenomenal schools they could go to, outside of that as well. So, sorry, I have an update created on my computer. Okay, so few things I ask my parents to and students to before we start the process is to understand how far from home is good enough for you, or how important the cost dimension. Notice admissions criteria is only one part of the selection, but geographic settings, is it a rural place, urban place, or it's in the middle of a downtown? Which one do you like to go to? What kind of academics do you want to study? What kind of an atmosphere? Do you like places where this fairly chilled out, more like party scene? Some students like it that way. And, like some students will even come to me and tell me, is there a boba shop close to it? Or there a Starbucks close by? That's very important to some of the students. For some students, size is very important. They don't want to go to a classroom which has like a massive, like 300, 400 students, which typically happens in a public research university. Private schools will have like 20 students, 21 students in the class. So understanding their personality, what kind of interactions they've had with professors, what kind of subjects have they done, if they've already decided on a particular major, which is more like a STEM major, or they're thinking of humanities but are not sure where they want to go. A lot of things go into making a decision about what colleges to look at. Now, obviously, we want to put in some good schools, some top schools as well, to try for, but we don't want to make a list which is only of top schools. For example, when I was showing you the list for this one student here, you can see that he's applying to Boston, Rice, New York University as his reach schools. Reach, you can see with the green sign. And then he's applying to Northeastern, San Diego State, Florida State, Texas A&M stuff, which are his targets. And then there are the safety schools. Okay, these are the safeties. So this is how you call it out. This is a reach, a target, a safety. That's the coloring in the system. And I decide that for every student based on their profile. Once I know what their personality is like, I can go in and I can change the, decision about what they're doing. This is my console where I see what the student is doing, what are some of the to-do lists for the student. I can create right here a list of to-dos that they are supposed to work with me on. If there's an exclamation next to a to-do, it's because they've not done it by the time they were supposed to do it. That issue has been escalated to the parent and to the involved counselor. I can look at the application outline for each student, where they are for their application, each of the, what they've submitted, what they've still work progress to do. So you can see up here, like which schools the student has already submitted to, where there's work in progress, where it's ready to submit. So we make the process, Milind, to your earliest question, more predictable for a student, where we can provide all the details about, we can suggest colleges based on their personality. A student can go and research that particular school based on the details I've provided over here. For example, they might decide to go to University of Alabama for whatever reason, right? And we can look very quickly without doing Google searches where the student can go, what's the demographics, what's the GPA expectation of the school, SAT expectation of the school, the total cost, which becomes very important to a lot of people, of the school, and net to net price you get very quickly. And this is data I have from the common data set. So it's very credible data. I can see there this school provides a lot of institutional grades. So I can see a lot of scholarship coming from this school. So I can see a lot of those details. I can also see what's called as a FISC guide, which is the industry standard, which I subscribe to, which gives you all the details about the school, what is the summary of the programs there, strongest programs the school does, and then some of the overlaps of schools. You can see University of Alabama actually has an overlap with Florida State and University of Florida. Who would have thought? But clearly there is an overlap. And when you go into University of Florida, I can then go in to see as an in-state student, like the average GPA of U Florida is 3.9. My student's GPA is 3.75. U Florida is not really known for giving institutional aid, but I can see the cost. My in-state cost for going to U Florida is phenomenal at $22,000. I can see the breakdown, what caused it, and stuff like that. Okay. Same thing, I can go into the FISC guide, see what it is. I can also see for University of Florida, what programs is this school offering? So I can very quickly look at, without going through marketing material on the website, I can see, okay, what programs are they offering? Say, for example, they're doing very good in biology and biomedical sciences. They have PhD programs and they have breadth and depth of all the programs, like bachelor's, master's, and doctoral for those programs. Business is still pretty good as well. Another area they're very good at is education. See, I can see the number of PhDs, the programs they're offering, the bachelor's programs, and I can see all these details very, very quickly. Engineering, they're killing it. You can see that. So this is not rocket science, as I said. I'm able to figure this out. I make this available to my students as well. Okay. Did I just go off track completely, or was I still on track with what I was saying?
All good, Harpal. Good information.
I'm just so passionate about this subject. I just want to give everybody everything. So
Yep.
This is how we do prioritization of a school. So when we look at a list of schools, or like my students, I typically will give them a list of 70 or 80 schools, and I won't give them all in one shot, but every week they'll get like 7, 8 schools from me, and they're supposed to go through that website, which I just showed you, do their, number crunching and saying, yeah, this is why I like the school. I'm going to drop the school for this reason. So they kind of move it. But this is dream, target, safety. This is kind of how you make a decision. And believe it or not, we start doing this at 10th grade. 10th grade onward, we start figuring out which schools might work for you. This is going to be a target based on your profile right now. This school will be a reach because you have a B in calculus, AB here. So take it, because if you had a good grade in calculus, we could have made it into a target for you. Okay, so you can see exponentially right away what impacts a student out of the box. Okay, a lot of students get stuck in this area, which is submission. Should I do early action, early decision, or regular decision to schools? As a good counselor, it's very important for us to make sure we start in June, and by 1st of November, which is when all early actions are due, that we are done with the work with the student. Because frankly, all students are writing is garbage after 1st November. They're so burnt out in the process. So getting them to good schools in an early action round, which is not binding, which means you can make a decision about that school all the way till 1st of May, versus an early decision school, which is typically what's called as binding, which means by the time they make you an offer, you only have 3 weeks to make a decision to accept it or reject it. So I'm not a big fan of early decision. I think it's a bloody, my apologies, it's a scam. So honestly, it's a horrible thing that they've been creating, but That's just me making a statement about it. It's just horrible. Excuse my French. But we can talk about restrictive early action that's important to you for specific schools. There are only like 6 schools in the country which offer restrictive early action: Purdue, Princeton, Stanford, Harvard, Notre Dame, and Boston College. Those are the only ones that offer REA. Some students, it makes sense to use this. I actually have a couple of students this year who are Stanford REA, but that's about it. Yeah. So that's really a summary of my press session, which is like, this is not rocket science. This is a value proposition we provide, a multi-year plan, focus balanced across all these 6 dimensions, very personalized care, with my entire team ready to help you out whenever you need. And that's really all what we are. So we open it up to questions now.
All right, Harpal, a few more questions that came in. If there are unintentional mistakes made while in college application, like entering volunteer hours or income level, uh, can it be fixed now after the admission application is submitted? Or what can be done there?
I don't think you can fix it. I mean, if you send a note to the colleges saying I made a mistake in my transcripts, it actually goes against you. I mean, you had your chance to put an application together. You had 6 months to put an application together. It shows sloppiness, tardiness on your part. I've had students who've called colleges a day after the admission deadline saying, hey, I forgot to admit, I didn't click the submit button. Can I submit right now on the early decision? What does the school say? Sure, do it. But that student ain't getting in. That's for sure. Okay? So they are very particular to know about your hygiene in terms of how you're planning your stuff, because that's a reflection for them of how the student will do in college.
Yep. Thank
That's
you.
what they care about. Go ahead.
Harpal, next question is a good one. I think all parents have this question. How many number of colleges a student should apply typically?
I typically apply for 21 schools. When I say 21, because I'm in California, most Californian students will apply to UCs as well. We call, even though UC is 9 campuses, it's one application, so we call it just one. But we are typically applying to 21 schools. And the process for us to apply is, and out of the 21, so 20 for your discussion's sake, 20 will be about 4 or 5 reach schools, which are very hard to get into. I mean, not very hard, but they're harder. You shouldn't even be applying to very hard schools. I mean, if you want to apply to those, maybe that's a Hail Mary you do in January. But when you have time and you have creativity, you apply to schools which are maybe one notch above your league. You to apply for those in early decision, early action. 5 or 6 of those, and then maximum, and then 6 or 7 targets, and about 6 to 7 safeties, and that makes it 20.
Perfect. Thank you. Is it possible to bring up your unweighted GPA during high school?
You could, if you take some summer programs, summer classes, which are like if you repeat a subject, or if you just take that same subject outside again in one of those, online courses, you could do it. Better to apply to get your weighted GPA further up versus just the unweighted. Because those are easier to get, because you can get classes in APs at community colleges. You can take a community level college course and say, for example, if you want to do psychology, you could go on to do Psych 201 or Psych 102, 103 at a community college, which you might not have the flexibility to do in an AP class either. So taking college level classes at a community course, a community program is a easier way to raise your GPA per se. And like at the end of the day, the school doesn't look at unweighted or weighted. They have a GPA calculator, and they're going to just weigh you on that calculator. And so whatever courses you've taken, they're going to take that and normalize it in their own way.
Thank you, Harpal. Next question is, are there any special consideration for BSMD program?
Yes, there are a lot of considerations for that. Like I said, making sure GPA is the top notch. The AP list, which I showed you, AP Bio, AP Chem, AP Physics 1, AP Stats, AP Calculus AB, maybe BC. Make sure those are in place. Make sure you've got the shadowing experience in place. You have some research project. You've done a top of the line summer program you applied for. So reach out to me. I'll help you out with that. BSMD is an area I've done really well with my students in the past. They've gotten into very good programs. There are like 60 programs in the country which allow you to do BSMD, and you need to be walking on water. Your acceptance rate is like 3% for those schools. What else? Milind?
Sorry, Harpal, I was on mute. Next question I got directly to me. Can you please share some success stories where you were able to place students in Ivy colleges or like the rich colleges?
Yeah. So most of my students will get into their top 2 or 3 schools. And the schools I've had them go into, let me share some testimonials. And the testimonials are all on my website. You can see um, how some of the students did. They got into some really good schools. Mostly some of them were UC, some were outside UC, some were University of Chicago. That's some testimonials for the students. Here are some of the schools which my students have gotten into. And so Columbia being one of the Ivies, Chicago being the other one. I have a lot of other students who've gone to very good schools, but Ivies are not really the biggest thing for me. It's a success rate. It's how many of my students finished in 4 years, how many are happy at the end of the day what they do. That's how I rate my work.
Great. And one another question I got directly is, second, let me go to my list here. What is the importance of starting early in 9th grade or 8th grade for the college admission process?
Biggest thing is the process, getting used to the prioritization of doing summer programs, getting them used to doing applications and writing questions like, why do you want to do this summer program over the summer? Okay, why this program, like a biology program? Getting them to start thinking that summer is a time when they should do some kind of targeted research on an area that they enjoy, not what their parents enjoy. So the sooner you start with the process and start talking to a counselor, they can start helping you with putting together just like, for example, let me share something with you. My 9th graders are going through this coaching right now. For example, where is it going? Here. So if you look at this skill set, this is the kind of work my 9th graders are doing. This is an actual dashboard of one of the students. Hobbies, interests, sites, summer planning, what are you doing? Volunteer service, career skills. You can see there the notes from the coach that they've taken for the student. How's the health doing of the student? What are the personal skills, career skills, self-directed projects? And again, if I go into details of each of their action items, the student has been given an action item to work on, to what kind of podcast to listen to. These are things which are not hotshot stuff. Okay. For example, executive function, teaching students how to do calendaring, to-do lists, attention management, project management. These things they understand. And we have Google Classroom material for that, which goes into a lot of details with that. What kind of hobbies is this person working on? What kind of summer programs is this person applying for? We can look at their status, volunteer work, career skills. How do you do interviews, networking? All this starts, cover letters, LinkedIn, looking for mentors. We start doing this on a once-a-month basis with the student. A lot of things around personal skill development. So yes, the more sooner you start, the better it gets. And this is just me. It's not something which all counselors do. I do it because I'm very passionate about this subject.
Harpal, just checking on time. Can we go a little bit more extra
I'm
time
good.
here?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
go.
perfect. So next question is, do I have to go to private sports classes for extracurricular activities outside school, basically?
I think it helps. It helps to do some of those um, because those programs tend to be more nuanced with actually making you do the stuff for extracurriculars like debate and stuff. You will actually not learn enough about that stuff in school. And here's a joke about it, which is, there are 37,000 schools in this country. And out of the 37,000, each school has decent 10 clubs and programs that they offer. And there can only be like, one president for each of those, but that still makes 370,000 presidents of clubs. And most students start, when they look at extracurriculars or programs in the school, they're looking at taking a executive position in the clubs, and that's where they focus most of their attention, because that the program, the quality of what they learn is very minimal. Most of them are very self-directed programs, so it all depends upon the student. I like some of them doing particular debate and painting and art and acting and stand-up. these are amazing things that you can learn on your own. You don't need to go through a school program. You don't have to even go through a professional program, with a private program. You can just hire a tutor or some mentor online, and they can help you with this skill set.
Thank you, Harpal. Next question is, at what grade do you recommend student parents should start program like this, preparing for college?
Sophomore year is the latest, but you could start earlier than that. I like students who come in the 9th or 10th, 8th. If they're exceptional students and they're killing it, come on in. But I'm very selective about the students who come very early. I'm very worried usually that they'll burn out and they'll leave the program because it gets too stressful for them. And that's not a good thing for the student to leave programs. Preferably, if sophomore year is when they are fairly emotionally mature. I mean, some are mature in the 9th grade too. So just come on in, we can figure it out if your student's ready for it or not.
Thank you. Next question is, hey, and there are some basic question. I'm right now, we will take it at the after offline, because so that we'll get maximum out of Harpal. So I'm focusing on more other questions. If I'm applying for business and finance school, does it matter if a student picks in-state school for Florida?
No, why would that matter? I mean, if you're applying to business and finance, any place will provide you a good, bachelor level program to give you those skills. I would say though, try to keep your skill set a little more nuanced. Keep these as minors, not as majors. I mean, undergrad in a business major or a econ major doesn't take you too far. You want to do something which is a little stronger on the technical side at a bachelor level.
Thank you, Harpal. Harpal, we got few questions related to pricing for the services you offer. Like you talked about, obviously, variety of scale of programs as well as summer internship and all that. Can you touch upon that, please?
Yes. So typically the pricing is $4,000 a year for all the younger grades. Senior year starts at 4,000, goes all the way to 8,000. But every year you should plan for spending $4,000 every high school year you have with us. And senior year you'll spend more depending upon the program you sign up for. It can be 4, 6, or 8. 8 is the unlimited package.
Great. I'm going through the questions, making sure that, okay, let's get back to this question. What is unweighted and weighted GPA? Please provide little explanation on that.
Unweighted is typically the non-honor subjects. So if your student is taking regular English, regular chemistry, regular math in school, not taking any AP or honor level subjects, that's called unweighted. So when you do a calculation of a GPA of just your regular score, that's typically out of a 4. You get an answer like your student got an A or a B, so that's a 3 on a 4.0 scale. But for weighted subjects, you are getting, it's a score, it's the calculator is out of 5. So if your student gets an A, that's considered a 5. So your average weighted GPA could become 4.1, 4.2, or some cases even 4.5. I've seen 4.7, 4.8 as well, but that's kind of unheard of. Typically, what you'll see is students getting a 3.7, 3.8 GPA unweighted and getting like a 4.3, 4.2 weighted GPA.
Perfect. All right. So that, I think, takes care of the questions in Q&A panel. If I have overlooked any question, my apologies, but please feel free to raise your hand so that we can unmute you and you can ask these questions directly.
There's a raise hand button right at the bottom of the Zoom. Okay, well, looks like
All right.
pretty much everything.
All right. With that,
thank you.
go ahead.
Yeah, Harpal, really, this session is very useful for parents and students. You made a cakewalk for them regarding the admission process, and I hope they may have so many other questions. They will come back to you. Whatever you gave the information, how to contact you. So this is very good. And I have last, one question. Like, what are the common mistakes students and parents make?
Yeah.
That is, it addresses the general question.
Just putting my cell phone number, HK cell number, WhatsApp me. Okay, I put I think I sent it to everybody.
Yeah,
I think,
you got it.
so it's my cell phone number. You can always send me a WhatsApp. It's the best way to reach me, and I can answer questions quickly for you. Okay. Common mistake that parents make, Srinivas, to your point, is A, starting late, B, not applying for merit scholarships, C, applying for too many reach schools, D, throwing the kitchen sink at the students, making them do all kinds of extracurricular activities, E, applying for too many AP programs in the 11th grade, which really kills the students. They think that the harder they make it for the student, the more interesting it's going to look. That's not true. For example, if you are looking at a pre-med career, you don't even need to do calculus BC. Calculus AB is good enough, and AP stats is good enough. You don't have to go crazy. Maybe do AP Chem. You might not need to do AP Physics. So talk to a counselor like myself, and we can answer some of those questions. So just don't burn your kids out. They don't make them terrified of the process of college. This is the fun process, and it should keep it that way.
All right, Harpal, with that, thank you so much for taking all the questions and staying extra 7 minutes. Thank you all for attending the webinar, and Harpal has agreed to share copy of the presentation as well as recording. And there's also nice guide he has. So, everyone who registered, definitely we can look at sharing that guide also with all of you. So again, thank you, Harpal. Appreciate your time and your knowledge here. And thank you all for attending. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye now.